I'm going to talk a bit about the use of the first person in poetry. We do think of the use of a first-person narrator as being something typical to the novel or the short story, but of course poets use this as well. It's quite dangerous to assume that the I of a poem is actually the poet, him or herself. It may be, and sometimes the I of the poem is a confessional poet, somebody who wants to express thoughts and feelings and uses the first person, referring very much to themselves. But it isn't always that, by any means. And the use of the first person in poetry has existed for hundreds of years. Let's take a really good example, which you'll all be familiar with, and that's Chaucer and the Canterbury Tales. Now, in the Canterbury Tales, Chaucer creates the pilgrims travelling to Canterbury who while away the time by telling stories. And the stories they tell are entirely suitable to the persons that they are. And so the style of each is quite different. So some of them will be boastful, some of them will be reflective, and the topics that they talk about vary very, very widely. For example, The Knight's Tale is just the sort of tale that you would imagine a knight would tell. It's courtly, it's about courtly love, it's about fighting, all that sort of thing. And it's a tale of chivalry and derring-do. That's just what you'd expect the knight to tell. But it's a story with a sad ending, because if you have two young men who both love the same girl and are going to fight over her, one of them is going to lose out, and indeed one of them dies. So there's a lot of tragedy in that story. How does Chaucer get that across when he's using the knight to tell the story? Because the knight loves warfare and he doesn't mind death and things. You know, that's fine, he's a knight. But Chaucer wants to bring out some of the more humanitarian thoughts. And so he creates a character in the knight who is rather limited. You can imagine him, he's a bit like, the Major General talking about war and how great it is. And when the poor chap who is dying is about to die, the knight says, "Farewell, physic, go bear the man to church." He's had it. Let's get rid of him from the story. And of course we think, oh no, how awful for him to have to lose his life so that the other two can have a happy ending. So there's The Knight's Tale. Another great favourite is The Wife of Bath. The Wife of Bath is a woman who's been married 5 times and is looking out for the next one, who is very robust in her attitude towards men and women and the battle of the sexes and how they get on with each other and her dominance. And she's a very feisty lady, she's great. Everybody loves her. But that's not Chaucer. Chaucer has created the character to tell the story and to give her side of events. So very much a bias there. If we move on in history right up to the Victorian age, we have Robert Browning, again writing a very well-known poem called On My Last Duchess, where the man speaking is the Duke talking about his last Duchess, his previous wife, and in talking about her you realise what a horrible man he is, how limiting and sexist he is, and how his wife was just a possession. And you realise from what he says about her that she was a really friendly, good-natured woman who was just crushed by him. That's a brilliant poem for looking at first person in poetry. Another one you could take is Tennyson, writing very much the same time as Browning. Ulysses, another great favourite. There is Ulysses talking about his past life as an explorer, mythical hero, but really he's rather past it now. He's getting old, and yet he still thinks that he can go on and find some wonderful new experience, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. He's still trying to find new experiences. That's not Tennyson. That's Ulysses, created by Tennyson. Just as My Last Duchess, the Duke is not Browning. That is somebody created by Browning. Chaucer is not the knight. Chaucer is not the Wife of Bath or any of those other wonderful characters he creates. So always keep that in mind. The writer and the person they create in the first person using the I is not the same person at all.